Each day, Wyoming small businesses generate many different types of hazardous wastes, from the neighborhood dry cleaner to the local print shop or the corner service station. The hazardous waste generated must be disposed of properly to protect our drinking water, food supply, and the air we breathe.
We generate about 300 gallons of waste a year.
Here at the newspaper, we produce about 2,000 pounds of hazardous waste a year.
500 pounds a month, 6,000 pounds annually.
As the owner or manager of a small business, it is important that you deal with hazardous waste safely and legally. This video will help you understand your obligations as a generator and how to minimize waste generation. We'll look at which wastes are hazardous and what you must do to comply with state and federal laws. We'll also provide some resources to help you reduce your waste generation and lighten your regulatory load. Many types of businesses generate hazardous waste, including vehicle service shops, printers, dry cleaners, mines, gas plants, construction companies, medical labs and hospitals, and agricultural operations, to name a few. Every business that produces hazardous waste or used oil is subject to periodic inspections by the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality Solid and Hazardous Waste Division, or DEQ. Failure to meet federal and state standards can endanger human health and the environment and result in penalties. So it is important to be aware of the type and amount of waste generated each month at your facility, along with the legal requirements. In this video, we'll discuss how your business is categorized as a hazardous waste generator, and we'll walk through the steps necessary to prepare for a trouble-free inspection. But first, it's essential to know exactly what a hazardous waste is. Every business produces waste, any solid, liquid, or contained gaseous material that must be recycled or disposed of in a landfill, by incineration, or other means is considered waste. Some waste, however, requires special handling because of its potential for harming our health or the environment. A waste is considered hazardous if it exhibits one or more of these characteristics. It is ignitable and catches fire with a flash point at or below 140 degrees Fahrenheit. It is aqueous and corrodes metals, or it has a pH of 12.5 or greater, or less than 2. When mixed with water or under heater pressure, it is unstable and produces toxic gases or explosive reactions. Or it is harmful or fatal when ingested or absorbed, and cannot be disposed of on land because it can leach toxic substances into the soil, groundwater, or atmosphere. Hazardous wastes may also be listed, meaning they appear on one of 4 lists in Chapter 2 of the Wyoming Hazardous Waste Rules and Regulations. Wastes that contain halogenated solvents, lead or cadmium, and several other substances are harmful when not properly managed. Several types of waste are defined as universal hazardous wastes. These include batteries, banned, unneeded, or obsolete pesticides, mercury thermostats, and any lamp that contains mercury. If universal wastes are recycled and not disposed of, their handling does not require a state EPA ID number, and they are not counted as part of your total hazardous waste generated each month. Your business will fall into one of 3 different categories based on how much waste you produce. Businesses that produce less than 220 pounds of hazardous waste per month are called Conditionally Exempt Small Quantity Generators, or CESQGs. At this level, you need only meet 4 requirements, which we'll go through in a moment. Small quantity generators, or SQGs, are businesses that produce more than 220 pounds per month, but less than 2,200 pounds. Large quantity generators, or LQGs, are businesses that generate more than 2,200 pounds of hazardous waste per month. This video addresses CESQGs and SQGs, so if your business is an LQG, contact the DEQ for additional requirements. A checklist is available for CESQGs and SQGs from the DEQ's Solid and Hazardous Waste Division to help you make sure you haven't overlooked anything. Let's take a look at the specific requirements for CE-SQGs and SQGs. For businesses generating less than 220 pounds of hazardous waste per month, the requirements are fairly minimal. As a CE-SQG, you must be able to answer yes to each of the following questions. You need to determine if your waste is hazardous. If so, is it a characteristic or a listed hazardous waste? Do you inventory how much hazardous waste you generate each month? Accurate record keeping is essential in complying with your legal obligations, and it makes the inspection process easier too. It is important, in the event you should ever accumulate or store more than 2,200 pounds of hazardous waste, roughly 4 to 5 55-gallon drums, that you understand and follow the requirements for small quantity generators. To meet your requirements as a CE-SQG, the hazardous waste you generate must be managed at a federal or state permitted waste treatment or disposal facility. If you meet all of these requirements, you will have no trouble passing your inspection. Because of the larger quantities of waste involved, requirements for small quantity generators are somewhat more extensive than for the conditionally exempt. As an SQG, you must be able to answer yes to the following questions. You need to identify all the hazardous waste you generate and be able to explain how you determined each is hazardous. Adequate proof of your determination includes test results on waste samples or process knowledge including chemical and physical information from a Material Safety Data Sheet or MSDS. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, requires that an MSDS be provided by chemical manufacturers and distributors for all hazardous products. Be sure to evaluate all possible sources of hazardous waste, especially areas that can easily escape notice, like shop floor drains and sumps. Floor drains and sump wells are especially important because they frequently drain directly into the ground and can easily contaminate groundwater. All waste that enters these drains must be tested or otherwise identified for a successful inspection.
Well, what we have here is all of our drains are connected to a sand oil separator that's outside the building, and anything that goes in this drain goes through that, and then we've got oil absorbent socks in there that we change on a regular basis. Then it spills over to the other side and settles out any of the sand, and then it goes on to the city sewer.
Parts washers are another possible source of hazardous waste that must be considered. Many businesses use a solvent that is ignitable or becomes contaminated during use, and therefore must be classified as hazardous. Solvents also create unnecessary environmental and worker health liabilities for your shop. Washers that use a non-ignitable citrus-based solvent may produce hazardous waste if they fail the toxicity characteristic for trace metals or organics.
It became pretty obvious that that had to be a goal. It was costing us a lot to ship that waste off site. So we looked at, were there some solvents that we could just eliminate, and in some cases we did, like chlorinated solvents. And in the other areas, what could we do besides use solvent? And that's when we went to some of those automatic washing machines, look like a big dishwasher. We've got a washing machine here that's big enough to put an engine block in. And we also eliminated our hot tanks in that respect.
For any parts washer, your monthly amount of waste is computed from the number of times the unit is serviced, so you need to keep careful service records. Often, costs and liabilities may be minimized by replacing a material or process with another that produces less waste. Many businesses have switched to washers that use hot water to clean parts, helping reduce the amount of hazardous waste generated and the amount of labor required to operate them. However, aqueous parts washers produce a sludge which should be tested and, if hazardous, included in the monthly hazardous waste totals. Typically, waste aqueous solution with sludge requires disposal less than 3 times per year.
Well, our objective obviously was to reduce costs also, but I was really surprised when I ran the numbers that we've reduced our generation by 85%. I didn't realize that until somebody asked me that question. I went back and looked at where we were 6-7 years ago. And when you're in this business, it's getting to the point where there's only so many people that'll handle that waste, and their prices are going up. So it's our objective is to eliminate solvent altogether.
All SQGs and LQGs need an identification number assigned by the state DEQ. You can obtain an ID number by filling out and sending in an application form available from the DEQ. If you ship waste off-site, you need to properly fill out and use the Hazardous Waste Manifest. Manifest forms track waste from generation to disposal and are available from your transporter or waste management facility. Some of the items that must be filled out include the name of the transporter, the name of the designated facility, your state EPA ID number, and a description of the waste based on Department of Transportation or DOT requirements, such as shipping name and hazard class. Call the DOT for this information. Upon receipt of your waste, the TSDF should send you a copy of each shipment manifest, signed by both the TSDF administrator and the shipper. If you don't receive a copy of the manifest, you must file an exception report with the DEQ. Exception reports are important to establish that you completed your requirements in good faith. This can be a typed or even a handwritten note attached to the manifest explaining that the return copy was not received. All exception reports, manifests, and waste test results should be kept on file for at least 3 years. Tolling agreements allow a business to contract with recycling companies to reclaim hazardous waste and return it as a recycled product. Recycling saves resources and can be more cost-effective than disposal. Commonly recycled substances include spent parts washer solvents, antifreeze, oil, and waste inks.
You must comply with the following requirements for tolling agreements.
The agreement must describe waste type and shipment frequency, and require that the vehicle used to transport the waste be owned and operated by the recycling company. You must also keep a copy of the tolling agreement for at least 3 years after a contract has been terminated or has expired. Your inspector will check to make sure that hazardous waste is properly stored. To prevent hazardous waste from corroding the containers, all tanks or drums must be sturdy, leak-proof, and lined with material compatible with the wastes. Every storage container must be labeled with the words hazardous waste, along with the date the waste was first placed inside.
In addition, prior to transportation,
All storage tanks need to be labeled with the appropriate DOT information to ensure safe transport. If the nearest hazardous waste treatment, storage, or disposal facility is less than 200 miles away, you may store your waste for up to 180 days. If the nearest